I want you to close your eyes and picture this for a minute. It's Friday afternoon, and it's been a long and stressful day at work. Your brain is groggy, and all you want to do is get home and relax. You're driving in your car, but you aren't really paying attention to that light that just turned red up ahead. You don't notice that the cars have stopped until it's too late. Boom! You hit the rear of the vehicle that stopped in front of you, so hard that you push it into the vehicle that was stopped in front of it. When the smoke fades and you finally register what just happened, you look up and you see you've caused serious damage to not one, but two vehicles. In that moment, you begin to question yourself, will I be covered for this? The reality is that while you did your due diligence and you purchased an insurance policy, you may be uninsured for this accident because you chose to carry the minimum liability limits of $10,000. Today, we're going to talk about what property damage coverage is, the exposures that could exist to yourself and your assets, and why you should carry more than $10,000 in coverage. According to the Florida Division of Consumer Services, property damage liability coverage pays for damages that an insured is legally liable for, resulting in physical damage to, or destruction of, tangible property of another, including loss of use. If the insured is sued, the insurer will provide legal representation. The state of Florida requires that every policy carry at least the minimum of $10,000 in coverage. Now, although the state requires you to carry only $10,000, there's also higher limits you can carry. The most common limits that can be purchased are $25,000, $50,000, and $100,000 in property damage coverage. You can go higher, but it's usually because you have very large assets you're looking to protect from any possible situation. And usually that coverage is found in the form of an umbrella policy and comes in $1 million and $2 million limits. Now, I told you the definition above property damage, but in layman terms, it basically covers you for any damages you cause as a result of your negligence. In the state of Florida, we have what's called comparative negligence. And comparative negligence means that you can be found for a percentage of fault for any type of negligence you caused in the accident. So if another driver runs a red light and slams into you, but you entered that intersection going 30 miles over the speed limit on a green light, you could be found to have been partially negligent, and your property damage coverage will kick in and pay the percentage of damage you owe due to that negligence. According to the National Association of Insurance Commissioners, the national car insurance average rate is just above $900 per year. But Florida has the fourth highest premiums in the United States, so our average is most likely higher. You would pay a portion for BI, PD, comp and collision, and rental, and any additional coverages that you want to carry. The most expensive coverages you're likely paying for are personal injury protection coverage and bodily injury coverage. I'm going to show you a deck page now of what it looks like and how that's portioned out. If you look closely, you'll see that the highest coverage that you're paying for is BI, and the next is personal injury protection coverage, and probably property damage coverage. But on this policy, it's about $79 for one car and $83 for the next. Keep this deck page in mind because we're going to talk about it later. The Insurance Information Institute shows that in 2004, the average auto liability claim for property damage in the state of Florida was $3,200. It's risen from $2,700 since 2005, but the cost of parts and labor have steadily rose over the years. This doesn't mean that if you have an accident, it will be in this range. This is just an average. Some damage costs way more and some are less, but it really depends on the year, make, and model of the vehicle and how much damage was done. A bumper that cost $300 to replace on the Ford could cost $1,500 to replace on a Mercedes. While most people know about being responsible to repair damages to the vehicle, they usually don't know about other expenses that get included within the property damage limit. If the car requires downtime in the shop, the insurance company must provide the claimant with loss of use. Basically a rental vehicle or a cash-out settlement for expenses they incurred for transportation while their vehicle was being repaired or replaced. Rentals aren't cheap these days, and they could cost anywhere from $150 to $1,200 depending on the vehicle they're given and the length of time they have to stay in it. If they don't carry collision coverage on their own policy, the insurance company could also have to pay for a damage waiver, which could run up to another $15 a day. And if you're unfortunate enough to damage a rental car, You could be charged administrative fees from the rental company, which could be anywhere from $100 to $250 added onto the claim. Another claim could be made for personal property that was damaged when the accident occurred. So say you hit a work truck and all those tools go flying out into the road, damaging most of them. They'll have to be replaced, and those costs can add up real quick. Then there's diminished value, which allows a car owner to recover the difference between a car's present value and its value after repairs. If you hit a 2015 Mercedes and damage it, you better watch out because diminished value could be costly. So what's the real cost of your property damage claim now? Let's say you did rear end that 2015 Mercedes and you did quite a bit of damage. The repairs end up costing you $8,500. They asked for a rental and the repairs took 8 days. And since they have a brand new luxury vehicle, the insurance company had to give them a luxury rental. And that cost $514. You also damaged the laptop they had in the car with them, which cost another $500 to replace. Then the owner of the Mercedes asked for diminished value. The insurance company and the owner come to agreement based on appraisals and agree that the value is $4,500. You are now looking at a property damage claim of $14,014, and you only have $10,000 in coverage. Let's talk about the exposures that you now have and that you're responsible for, which is more than $10,000. Insurance companies will always approach the other insurance company to accept payments of your limits and eat the additional expenses they incurred, but that doesn't always happen. Most insurance companies these days are not looking to help people who are underinsured and won't accept the money from the insurance company without a contribution to the responsible party. That means they want you to pony up the additional expenses over $10,000, usually in the form of one payment or monthly payment. The average person doesn't have thousands of dollars in a saving account and mostly live paycheck to paycheck. If you don't come to reach an agreement with the insurance company or the claimant making the claim, then you may be visited by a process server letting you know that you're being sued. Your insurance company will provide you with an attorney and pay for your defense. But in my 16 years of experience with claims, the judge almost always awards the damages presented if they can prove the cost of repairs and that you are responsible for the loss. That is fairly easy to do with a police report and an estimate from the insurance companies. So now you have a judgment entered in for the amount you were in excess your limits of. Big deal, right? Very big deal, especially if you have assets they can get their hands on. If you don't have assets and they can file a wage garnishment with the court. Then you have no choice because your employer is taking money each day to satisfy a percentage. Every pay period you're required to pay before you can even get your hands on your own money. So before you say big deal, I just won't pay it, think twice. Insurance companies who secure a judgment against you will most likely proceed with a wage garnishment because they've already put in the cost to secure the judgment. And did I mention that you don't just get hit with the judgment, you also have to pay their costs and any interest accrued that occurred. So that $4,014 you were responsible for becomes an additional $950 in cost and $150 in interest for a new total of $5,079. Now you're wishing you'd picked that $25,000 in property coverage when the sales counselor advised against $10,000, but you didn't want to pay the extra money. You're stuck repaying $5,079, and it would have only cost you an additional $20 a month to increase your property damage limits of $240 a year. I know I would rather pay $20 a month to be properly covered than pay 25% of my wages garnished until I repaid a judgment. So in summary, property damage coverage is a coverage that pays for property damage you're liable for as a result of negligence and a loss, up to your policy limit you selected. The Florida minimum requirement is $10,000, but you can carry anything from $25,000 up to several million. There is also additional items covered under property damage, such as loss of use, personal items, and diminished value. You can end up paying out of pocket anything over your limits or be subject to litigation or wage garnishment if the damages exceed your property damage limit. A property claim that you thought only cost $9,500 turned into $15,000, and all because you weren't covered properly. So let's go back to that scenario that I mentioned in the beginning. Would you be covered for this loss? Is it worth only carrying $10,000 after everything we've discussed? Yes, I hear your thoughts now. But Kirsten, this is going to cost me more money each month. When your wages are being garnished at 25% until your debt is paid, would you be saying the same thing to me? These days you need to be properly covered and your assets. You don't want to lose everything you've worked for. because you didn't want to spend the extra couple bucks a month to increase your limits. I want everyone to leave here and go home and pull out your auto policy paperwork. Take a look at your coverages you carry and how much premium costs you. And if you think it's the right coverage for you, then that's great. Do you have enough money in your savings account to cover anything you're uninsured for? If the answers to these questions are no, then please give your insurance company a call and see how much it would be to increase your limits to just $25,000 or even $50,000. I hope you're never involved in an accident, but if you are, you need to make sure you're covered sufficiently and protect your assets you've worked so hard to recover over your lifetime. Thank you.